Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to part number 3 of our LEC 2021 Spring Split Predictions videos. Today, we've got our third team in this lineup, and it's one of the bigger teams in FC Schalke Null Fear. Now, as I say this, we've got 5 players raring to go in terms of us giving them stats, and these include Broken Blade, Giles, Abadage, Neon, and Limit. All 5 players coming together as one team for this upcoming spring split, and this does look like a very strong squad. But without further ado, let us get into our first player evaluation. So, up first we have our first main region champion in Broken Blade, coming over from TSM, who had a very good split last year in the LCS, winning the entire playoffs and then going 0-6 at Worlds. But we don't talk about that, do we? But yeah, he's coming into this Schalke lineup in the top lane, replacing Odawamne, and Broken Blade is a very strong carry player who has played tanks from time to time, but when he's given a carry like a Jax or an Aurelia, he pops off and he goes extra ham, and he provides such a pivotal point in the TSM lineup. He was able to carry through, and if Bjergsen wanted to go to his infamous Zillion and be a bit more supportive, Broken Blade was there to take up the carry role and take TSM through to a win in the LCS. Now, coming over to the LEC, he's filling a similar role to what Odawamne liked to do. He also is a carry top player who is known for his carries and can be very strong. But I would honestly say, as we look at our stats, Broken Blade has a higher mechanical skill level than what Odawamne has, and as such I've given him a 4.3. He was a big deal in TSM, carrying them through to a lot of victories and giving a lot of strength to that lineup. And we saw a lot of that strength through his pre-match team talks to lineups in the TSM Legends videos. He always do them big squad talks, and he was the vocal one of this team, giving them this sort of motivational talk to get them to perform in games. And as such, I've given him a 4.1 for his communication skill, and realistically that is suiting of what he needs to be at. Now, as for his 2020 accomplishments, he won the LCS, his playoffs, which is a main region, therefore he's getting straight in with a 5. Nothing more can be said than that. A 5 is a good scoreline for winning your region, especially a top region in the world, even if it is NA. During the summer split, there was a saying going around in the LEC about this next player, and it was Giles, God of Lee Sin, ascend to godhood and grant me this win. And when you have that saying going for you, that truly does mean that you have done something exceptional for a lineup. And this guy did a lot of work for this Schalke lineup in the summer split, giving them hope and a chance to achieve that miracle run that we eventually got to see, getting them to playoffs. And this guy was a focal point of that happening. And his name is Giles, if you can't tell by that little rhyme we just did. And let's get into the mechanical skill for this guy, known for his Lee Sin, as I've said. Yeah, he's getting also a 4.3, same score as Broken Blade. He performed exceptionally well during the summer split. Got slightly unfortunate in the playoffs with the lineup dropping out to Mad, but he still performed exceptionally well, and as a whole I would say is a very keen and basically the emotional part behind this Schalke lineup. And when you say that, he deserves a high score for communication, purely based on how he presented himself to the world and through the mic checks, that he couldn't believe that what he was saying was coming true, and how he helped his lineup get from the scraps of the squad at the start of the year through playoffs. He was phenomenal. As such, I've given him a 4 for communication. He was so key in keeping the spirits high in Schalke that obviously he needs a high score for his leadership and communication. As for the season achievements and accomplishments, I was contemplating giving Giles a higher score than the other members of Schalke that are remaining, but then I thought it was a team effort. Giles got a lot of the credit for how his team performed, but there were also other factors into why that team did so well, and as such he's getting a nice 3.7 for his 2020 accomplishments at the end of the year. We now have another vital part of that Schalke miracle run. Fakadage, or his actual alias Abadage, in the mid lane returning to Schalke, and this guy is an exceptional player. One of the only 2 people in the LEC to get a win on Zoe in the summer split, as well as being one of the better players in the league that just whipped out whatever he realistically wanted to, and Schalke realistically won them games where he just played whatever, and that was a surprise to most players. Now, getting into his stat line, giving him a nice 4.3 for mechanics. Obviously, if you're one of the only 2 people to get a win on a champion that's considered to be very OP, you have to obviously have good mechanics to actually achieve that. So he's getting that scoreline for that. For his leadership, again, he was up there with Giles in leading this lineup. He's getting a nice 3.7. And for his 2020 summer split achievement scoreline, again, it's the same as Giles, 3.7. Fairly good player overall, and very, I would say, average scoreline for most in consideration to how I've graded him. And finally, our last returning Schalke member now, and this one was quite hard to grade. It is Neon, the ADC player, who as a whole plays standard ADCs very well. During the miracle run, he only realistically played 3 different champions, and that was Senna, Ezreal, and Ashe. Now, whether or not he has other champions in the pool, it's going to be intriguing to see, because it's quite easy to ban out just all ADCs in the current meta, and Jhin being quite prevalent, we don't know if he can play it. Obviously, you'd expect him to be able to play it, but he didn't show it during that miracle run for Schalke, and as such, you maybe question it. And let's go over his stats, starting with mechanics, going in with that solid 3.7. Now, I would give him higher to match the rest of his team, but as I say, mechanically, when you're limiting yourself to 3 champions instead of a broad array of them where you're picking up wins, it maybe is a bit of a difference and an issue. And looking at his scorecards and performances, a lot of the time he's either getting very few kills or getting a lot of assists, or getting a lot of kills for the lineup, like 4 or 5 at most, and the rest of his team picking up the slack. That's the sort of style that Neon plays, and you don't require too much mechanical skills for that. Obviously, picking up assists is very easy, but one thing to note is he's very good positionally. He's got very few deaths. Bar say his last performance in the LEC during the playoffs against Mad Lions on his Ash, he died 7 times. The rest of the games on his scorecard are only going up to 3 deaths, so it's the reason why it's so high for mechanics, but a reason why it's not extremely high, I would say. As for leadership, 3.5. To me, he's one of them players that feels quite quiet when listening into the mic checks for the LEC. When you hear Schalke's comms, he isn't the loudest of players. I would say you've got the likes of Giles and Odawamne back then, who were the focal voices on that Schalke lineup, and Neon just did his job quietly and did well. So he doesn't get that high of a score for communication, because I don't feel that he needed to be that vocal voice. And for his 2020 season achievements, same as Abadage and Giles, to 3.7, coming across as standard for this Schalke lineup. And the last player in this video we're covering is Mr. Limit. He's coming over from SK after facing the Schalke lineup in the first round of playoffs and losing 3-0. This guy has played a lot of Enchanter supports during the regular split, playing the likes of the Bard, the Morg and the Yuumi, but he still has performed well on the Threshes. In fact, his Thresh, looking at his record, has only dropped during the regular summer split 1 game, and actually it's 2, but the rest of the times he's played it, he has gotten a perfect record on that Thresh, as well as playing the likes of Nautiluses here and there and the Leona from time to time. He is overall a very strong support player who, as a whole, I've given a nice juicy mechanical scoreline of 3.8, as he performs exceptionally well on his support pool, and in my opinion was probably one of the better supports in the league. As for the communication skill, going in with a solid 3.2, I would say he needs to be that low for this upcoming season because he's joining a new lineup, but he has a very vocal voice, and I was tempted to put him a bit higher than what I'm saying here, because obviously I expect him to fit very nicely into the mold of Schalke and communicate exceptionally well with the rest of the lineup. And lastly, for his 2020 accomplishments, I was wondering how much of a difference I should put between Schalke and SK in terms of the accomplishments, and as such I've actually only dropped it by 0.2 from what I've given Neon, Abadage and Giles, so it's a 3.5 for Limit's overall 2020 success. Now that that's out of the way, let us jump over to our table of teams to determine where I'm going to put this Schalke lineup in the LEC overall prediction. So, as our illustrious leaderboard loads up with the 2 teams already on it in Astralis and Excel, both coming in 6th and 7th in my respective decision. Where have I put Schalke though? Well, believe it or not, this is our first team on the left hand side of the board. I've gone and stuck Schalke in 4th. Honestly, to me, Schalke have been a phenomenal squad throughout the 2020 season, and with the additions they've gone through this year, I honestly think that they could be challenging for playoffs from the get-go and not from the second half of the split. This squad has a lot of strong points in it, you've got a lot of emotion, you've got a lot of mechanically skilled players, and as such it's going to be intriguing to me to see if what I've said in this video will actually come true. They will show up to the LEC, pop off from the get-go and absolutely decimate every opponent they come in against. Now, granted, I have put them in 4th and not any higher because there is technically a few other teams that I would say are slightly better than Schalke, and as such, that's why they're there. Anyway, that is gonna be it for today's video. If you've enjoyed this one, leave a like down below, subscribe if you're new around if you want to, and I will see you guys next time, where we'll be moving across to a team a lot of you will have a lot of interest in Fnatic.